Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about the one simple mental technique, or this one simple, I don't want to call it a hack because I don't really want to promote, sales hacks and, gimmicks and, buy or die. I don't really want to promote that, but this is literally just one small thing that you can change to your sales calls that is going to help you not only 3 to 4x your sales ability, but also make the sales process much less unbearable. Like, I know a lot of people when they're doing sales, especially if you're an agency owner or like a founder and you're not a sales background type of person, or even if you are, it's sales is not always the most intuitive thing. There are people that have like this innate sales ability. I don't think that's me. I wouldn't say I'm the best sales guy. I wouldn't say I'm Jordan Belfort 2.0 or anything like that. But just by doing this one thing, I have been my ability has just gone to, I don't want to even say another level. I just enjoyed the process a lot more. And the reason this has come up today was because I'm trying to ramp up a new closer for 1,000x leads. So we got a new sales guy because we were booking too many calls, quick flex. But I was reviewing some of his calls today and he was making this one mistake. So I wanted to cover it because I thought it would be valuable for more people to hear, essentially. So the one thing that you want to do, or the one thing that you want to avoid, is telling people on a sales call or telling the prospect basically anything. You don't want to make too many assertions, and more importantly, you definitely don't want to make too many assertions after they ask a question. So for example, if the prospect goes ahead and asks something like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to have time for this. Do you think I have time for this? The absolute worst thing that you can do in that scenario is tell them, yeah, you've got time. You're going to be able to do this so quickly. It's absolutely, it takes no time at all. We've got the best thing. Don't worry. The number one thing is going to happen there is the sales resistance is going to go all the way up. So for example, if you're selling an agency service and you say, and the prospect says, hey, I don't know. I just don't know about, your background, or, I want to go think about it, or whatever it may be. To be honest, on agency sales calls, you're probably going to get hit more with indecision than you will with specific questions. Or, they might say, hey, we've already got an in-house team. Do you reckon you'd be better than our in-house team? Something like that might come up. So when these questions come up where they're saying, hey, I have an objection, what do you think about this? The worst thing you can do is try and qualify yourself after that, because that is the opposite of the dynamic that you want to bring. You want people to come to you and attempt to qualify themselves to you, rather than you going up to a person saying, hey, I'm so good, we're so good, blah, 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 yada, 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 we're the best, we have the best product, etc. And that's kind of the whole ethos behind the sell me this pen thing, provided I'm not trying to be Belfort and he's good. That whole sell me this pen thing is very, very true, because everyone that goes up and says, hey, sell me this pen, hey, sell me this pen, and they say, hey, this pen's the best pen, it's the best felt tip pen, etc., it's not that good. It raises sales resistance like crazy. It feels terrible, and it doesn't lead to more sales. The thing that's going to lead to more sales is something called selling rather than telling. Every time you tell the prospect something, like I said before, every time you tell the prospect something, you kind of lose authority almost. Obviously, some people have this sort of consultative style of making sales, especially when they're talking about founders. They often sort of take the approach of consultative and they say, hey, yeah, you can do this, you can do that. Oh, you might be able to do that, you might be able to do that. That does work for some people. But what I'm talking about specifically in this video, and I can just pull up my notes, is that if they have an objection coming up, you have to, number one, the first thing you need to do to sell, not tell, is get ahead of it when they bring it up. So for example, if they say, or if they're required, sorry, I just accidentally clicked the wrong thing. But if they're required to put in a certain amount of time for this thing, and they're saying, yeah, I'm super busy, I've got 17 kids, I've got 7 wives, I've got all this stuff going on, my calendar's completely blocked off, I've just signed 50 clients, we have no operations, I'm going to have to build all that stuff, I'm going to have to recruit all these people. If they're saying something like that, and whatever you're doing requires time, even if you're an agency service, if you're like starting a new project, or you're running new ads, or you're starting a new product launch, whatever it may be, and they're saying they're really busy at the moment, that is essentially meaning, hey, I'm going to object later saying it's not the right time. Or, hey, I'm going to object later saying I don't have time for this. So what you need to do in that situation is 110% get ahead of that. You have to get ahead of it as soon as they bring it up. Otherwise, you're going to be on the back foot trying to convince them that, oh, it's going to be so easy, it's going to be completely done for you, it's going to be all this stuff, you are going to be on the back foot, because they're going to eventually say, oh, remember when I said that thing about being so busy, we're launching this new product, we've got to onboard these new 3 people, etc. That is going to come back to bite you in the ass very, very soon. So that's the first part of selling, not telling. You have to be able to have this spidey sense that tells you, as soon as they say these things that bring up these red flags, you have to immediately know the connotation of that, i.e. what that means. So if they say I'm busy, that means, okay, click in my head, that's an objection that's going to come up later. So typically what I'll do when something like that happens, or, you don't even have to do what I do. This is just what I do. If you think I'm a dumbass, don't do it. If you think I'm enough of a dumbass to just test it and see what happens, because it's going to feel much better. I guarantee you that. Or I don't even guarantee you that. Just try it. I'm not even going to make an assertion. I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to sell you. But what you want to do is you want to just immediately disqualify them based on that thing. And what I mean by disqualify is saying, oh, well, like, you seem super busy. Why would you think it's a good idea to do anything like this now? If you've just, onboarded 3 new people to your company, you need to train them up. I'd imagine you probably got a lot going on with X, Y, and Z. Why are we here? Like, you're almost just trying to push back. You're trying to say, hey, if you've got this, like, why would you do that? You're trying to disqualify them. And what you're trying to do there, number one outcome is they start qualifying themselves and they say, oh, no, it's really not that big of a deal, et cetera, et cetera. And then when that happens, if they start coming towards you, you can almost pull back a little bit more. You can say, oh, okay, like, are you sure? Like, it sounds like you've got a lot going on. Obviously not in that completely salesy, I'm trying to like play it up, but you say, oh, like, are you sure? Like, it sounds like you've got a lot of things to do. Would you be correct in saying that? Like, am I insane for saying you might be a little bit busy at the moment? But that's only if they start pulling towards you. If they start pushing back and they say, you know what, I am really busy, I don't know if it's the right time, what you have to do is you have to start challenging them. And when I say challenging them, I mean, or not you have to do, what I typically do is I'll start challenging them and I'll say, okay, what made you think it's a good idea to book a call then? Are you sort of looking into it? Is it low priority, et cetera, et cetera? And in those instances, you basically have to try and realign their beliefs or realign their priorities within that call if you want to make the sale. So if they say, you know what, I am too busy, we're like, oh, okay, is it just low priority? And then they'll say, oh yeah, growing my business is low priority. Well, it's like, oh, okay, so are you just in a season of not growing? It's like, okay, you're in a season of not growing. If you really, really want to go ahead and not grow for the next 6 months, okay. Or you can go the route of, oh, well, are there any sort of challenges that you're facing with X, Y, and Z? And you can try and realign and try and find a problem. Because really what you're trying to do on a sales call is find the real problem, label that problem, figure out if you can solve that problem, and then you want to sell them on that solution. So you really want to be in that problem and solutions-based mindset. But like I said, you've just drawn this all the way back from future objection that they're going to bring up that you have no solution for, towards, okay, now we're talking problems and solutions. Because when you're talking problems and solutions, that is when I personally think, okay, this call's going well. I'm getting info on the prospect. I know their problem. I know the implication of that. I know I can solve that. I know I can sort of twist it towards the pitch, and I know exactly how I'm going to do it. But if you're in this position of qualifying yourself, let me just tell you, it's never going to close. There is not a singular time in my entire business and sales career that I've ever qualified myself to a prospect and then closed. It just never goes well. So what you want to do is, at the fundamental level, is just use questions to lead prospects where you want them to go, rather than telling them how it is. So rather than saying my solution is the best, you might say, why were you interested in my solution? What problems are you facing? What's going on with your XYZ thing? Like, what are your stats? What are your KPIs? So for example, if you're selling email marketing, you might say, oh, well, what's got you looking into email marketing? Like, oh, it looks like you booked a call to chat about email marketing. What's got you interested in that? You guys starting a new campaign, starting a new company? Do you have an in-house team? Do you have an agency right now? What's going wrong with that such that you would book a call? Because even if you reach out to them, the fact that they are on the phone means they are interested. That is a huge level of interest. I cannot tell you the last time that I got on a sales call with someone just for fun. Obviously, some people will say they're curious. They'll say, oh, I'm just looking into it. But even in those instances, they're lying. Like, absolutely, they've got this kind of buyer's agenda where the buyer will always want to make their decision the way that they want to make it, because people love buying stuff. They don't like being sold to. So what you want to do is you need to use these pointed questions. And you can do this by focusing on language like, hey, look, to be honest, I saw your application. It looks like you guys are around this revenue level. To be honest, most of the people that we work with are at this revenue level. The problems that arise with that is that typically around here, like typically around 50K a month, We see that you're facing these problems. We typically focus on these problems that typically arise around 100, 200K a month. Is that something that you resonate with? Is that kind of where you're at? Like, I'm not sure it's the best fit here. And then all of a sudden, not only is that not salesy at all, not only is that an easy way and a non-salesy way that won't trigger alarms for them to start qualifying themselves, but you're actually going to get better information on the actual problem rather than just being stuck talking about gibberish like people always talk about on sales calls. Like I see people talk about, it's not necessarily how's your day. I don't think people are at that level of asking how's your day, but they'll just ask a lot of non-relevant questions that are not related to the problem. So the reason most people are afraid of this is because they think the prospect will just leave. They think if you say, hey, do you have time for this? It sounds like you're busy. They think the prospect's just going to say, yep, I don't have time for it. Let's not talk about it. I'm done. But in the reality, there's a lot of nuance here. There is a lot of nuance. When you DQ someone and they agree immediately, and when I say DQ, I mean disqualify. And by that, I mean you push away and say, hey, do you have time for this? And keep in mind that I'm just using the do you have time for this as sort of an arbitrary objection. It could be we have an in-house team. It could be anything. The reason that people don't like this is because they think they're just going to leave. For example, our solution is typically more expensive than others in the market. Are you looking for a budget option, or would you rather pay for a better result? If someone says they're looking for the budget option, that doesn't mean, oh, okay, it's over. The budget option's done. It means that you need to go ahead and challenge that belief. So you might say something like, yeah, that makes sense, assuming that you have sort of the time and patience for it. I'm curious though, if you're looking for the budget option and you're aware of this sort of thing, is there a reason you haven't done that already? Is there a reason that we are having this conversation? Because you kind of probably know that we're a bit more expensive than X, Y, and Z. Or were you just completely blindsided by this call and you were expecting something way lower? Then all of a sudden you're going to find out exactly, were they just looking for something way lower and they're completely disqualified? Because if they're looking for something that's like $500 and you charge 10 grand, it's never going to work. Or you can start getting to say, oh, well, I actually tried that. I tried that low cost option and I completely failed. And then if that's the case, you've got them. And you say, oh, well, if you've tried that low cost thing, like, are you just going to do that again? I'll see you in 6 months then. We can stop the call right now. And it's that confidence, it's that almost the abundance to be able to say, hey, look, if you're looking for a budget option and you've tried it before and it hasn't worked, you can do that again if you want. You can do that again, like if you feel like it. And again, I'm not trying to say that I'm Jordan Belfort 2.0 here, but you can definitely get a huge reduction in sales resistance by doing this. And it is pretty strong. So, for example, I'm just pulling up my notes here. A few actionable things that you can take from this call is, number one, you really don't want to be allowing your prospect to drive the conversation. You don't really want them asking questions in the first place. You want them answering questions that you ask. For example, the best closers that I've ever seen, they all have a really low talk time, meaning they talk much less than the prospect. And this isn't, a rule. This doesn't mean if you talk more than the prospect, you're never going to close. But I have seen that the best ones do talk less than the prospect. I've seen that the worst ones also have a talk time of over 50%. I've seen a pretty consistent theme that when I'm reviewing calls, if the talk time is over 50%, doesn't close as much as when it's below 50%. You can get a software app like Read AI. That's what I use, and it actually gives you your talk time. So we use that when I'm reviewing calls. And then number two, the second actionable thing is that try to catch red flags as soon as they come up. So you want to have your spidey senses completely sharp and completely on while you're conducting these sales calls, because it takes a lot of focus, but that's why you have coffee. That's why you have nicotine. That's why you have things that keep you sharp. That's why you need your 8 hours sleep. That's why you're sales reps and why you as the founder, if you're doing sales, need to be really, really sharp. It's really important. The next thing is that you really need to increase your level of status. So if you're a founder, you're a B2B company, you're an agency, whatever it is, even if you're a rep, again, like this kind of applies to anyone who's selling anything. If you're in the position of being worried that if you DQ someone or disqualify them, if you're worried about them just leaving and you're like, oh no, like I can't afford to lose this lead, you're absolutely screwed. There is no chance that being this sort of needy, desperate person, there's no chance you're going to close nearly as much as the guy who just doesn't care and says, oh, like, why are you here? And you're pushing away, because as we know, it's kind of this thing that's innate in humans. Whenever someone's really desperate, they're trying to claw at you and trying to get close to you, it's almost repulsive. You don't want that. It's like, bad, get away. It's just not a nice thing. Compare that to someone who's just completely abundant. And I don't even love using that word abundant because people just throw it around like it's, I don't even know what. But the people who just are themselves, they're not too worried. They don't really care. They're just trying to find out if it's a good fit, really. At the end of the day, that's really what the sales conversation's about. Those are the people that have infinitely more success than the others. And one small way to do that is to absorb the authority and absorb the status of your company and your case studies and the people you've worked with. And then if you can't do that, so for example, if you're selling for a company that doesn't have a lot of authority, you just almost have to act like it, because it doesn't necessarily have to be an innate thing that you have. Some people just walk around, they've got high status, they've just got authority, it's just built into them. They're the people that are really naturally good at sales, even if they're not the biggest extroverts. It's the people that just hold themselves in a really high esteem. That's what I'm talking about. And you can look into these things, read some Oren Klaff. He's a really good one for this specifically. But it's really just about holding your own. Like, they've come to you on the sales call at the end of the day. There's no reason that they should be asking you too many questions too early in the sales process. Obviously, if it's an objection handling style thing, there's no reason that they should be driving the sales process. You need to be driving that, asking the questions, selling them, using your pointed questions to drive them where you want to go. Find out the problem, find out exactly what it is, label them with the problem, get them to agree, get them with the tie downs, which is another way of saying, hey, do you have time for this? Cool. Do you agree that, XYZ person is the right person to take you here? Cool. Do you agree with our process? Cool. You think our process is going to work? Awesome. And then you have those three. You go, okay, cool. Would you like to hear the price? Whatever it may be. You really need to get, I'm trying to explain, like, you need the box. You see it? You need to box them in. Because if you leave one of these open where say, oh, I'm not bought into the process, and this side of the box open, that's where they're going to run. So that is what I'm talking about when I say selling, not telling. When you're DQing people based on specific aspects of the sales process, I don't even know if this makes sense. Hopefully it makes sense. But when you're DQing them based on specific aspects of, or specific parts of your offer that are very necessary. So for example, like I said, if your offer is time intensive, you need to make sure that you're DQing people on time. If your offer requires them to have a really, really good idea of product market fit, or they really know what they're selling, you should DQ them based on that. They'll qualify themselves. Oh yeah, we're in product market fit. Okay, great. That means they're not going to object about product market fit stuff. And you can see how this is a recurring thing where you need to sell rather than tell. Meaning, yeah, it's the best. It works. Even you're in product market fit, of course. It just you can't make assertions like that. You need to make the prospect make their own assertions. Absolutely integral. And I'm just thinking of some more examples of making assertions that would be more applicable to agency. Yeah, so to be honest, a lot of it is going to be down to the mechanism. So for example, if you're doing a certain paid ad strategy, if you're doing a certain email marketing strategy, if you're doing a certain cold email strategy, that's a common one these days as well. You really have to make sure they're bought into that mechanism. So for example, if you're doing a cold email, you really have to say, okay, do you think cold email works? Obviously they do, but a lot of them will have these beliefs that it doesn't actually work. So you have to tie them down on that and make sure they agree to it before they ask it later. So, hey, you agree, if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll get X amount of clients from this cold email strategy. You agree? You think it's going to work? Cool. Bang. Tick. And you've just ticked off the mechanism part of this box. And then you can say, okay, and do you think, based on the process that we've gone through with our company, do you think our company would be the right ones to take you there? Yes. Tick. Bang. So you've got that. And do you think, based on the situation of your company right now, do you think it's a good time to scale? Do you think it would be a good idea to invest into your marketing? You agree? Yes. Bang. Tick. You've got all of them. Bang. And you can just go price, slap that baby on the top, and you have closed the deal. So hopefully that was clear. And hopefully this was, hopefully it was a refreshing insight to sales. Because I know a lot of people in sales are kind of like, oh, well, you need to do this. And they're yada, 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 running around a room, going crazy. It's not like that. You just need to talk to people, have a conversation, ask the right questions, and don't get too excited. Enthusiastic salespeople are the worst. No one wants to talk to enthusiastic salespeople because no one wants to be on that call. No one likes sales calls. Just do the thing, run the process, close the deals. Cheers. Let me know if you like this, and I'll make more sales-based content, but I'll see you in the next video.